Today's presentation is on monitoring your risk or monitoring your safety performance. How do we decide how we're doing? Are we really getting out of our program what we want? What really should we be monitoring? These are hard questions, and they're important questions, and they're things that a lot of smart people have spent a lot of time thinking about. And I'm going to try to summarize this stuff for you today and put it in hopefully a concise enough way that you can make good decisions for your operations. I'm not going to tell you this is exactly what you should do, because it's really dependent on your organization and the conditions and everything about your organization. And so I'm going to hopefully give you some good ideas on what to look at, and then let you take it from there. I'll provide you with some resources on where to find data and how to track things. That's really my goal, and I hopefully we can do it in a succinct way and get this done and answer your questions. All right. Saw this quote recently, said, "That which is measured improves. That which is measured and reported improves exponentially." That was by a mathematician named Carl Pearson. And that really hit me, what a profound quote that was. If we measure something, there are a lot of quotes around this. What we measure, what gets measured, gets attention. But I thought this one was really good. We improve the things that we measure, and if we report on that improvement vastly or exponentially improves. That's a pretty profound thing. Well, that's what we're talking about today. How do we improve our performance? Safety is a journey. All of us are in a different location in our safety journey. There are companies that have been around practicing safety, industrial safety, for well over 100 years, and they have very mature programs. There may be some on this webinar today who really don't have a whole lot of stuff going. Hey, we're just out doing our job. We're a new organization, or we got a bunch of new people and we're just trying to figure this out. None of that matters where you're at. The thing that does matter is that we pick a destination and we start working towards that. Those companies that have been practicing industrial safety for 100+ years still have challenges. They still have not reached their destination. This is something that is a continual process to get better. So you say, well, what is our goal? What's our destination? Where do we want to get? Overall safety. What does that mean? No injuries. We have a great organization in the state of Utah called Zero Fatalities, and they have the stated goal of having no people die on Utah roads. I love that as a goal, but I'm pretty realistic in that that's a pretty hard one to get to. So is that where our goal should be? Is that the metric that we're looking at? There may be a better number besides fatalities. That should, of course, be our overall goal, is that nobody dies out there. But is there something that will help us to get there aside from that? No incidents. Is that realistic? You work in a razor blade factory and you've got 10,000 employees there. We're probably going to have somebody get cut. And so realistic. And what should that be overall destination be? I think one of the best goals that we can have out there is developing a culture of safety. But you say, how the heck do you define culture or measure culture? We'll talk about a few ways that we can do that. But I think maybe our ultimate goal is, hey, how is our culture doing compared to where we were? And what does that lead us to? Because truthfully, in a lot of ways, that culture is the thing that will prevent accidents. All right. So how do we reach our goals? here's some thoughts on that. One, we've got to define what those goals are. We've got to put them down on paper, write them down, and outline how are we going to get to that goal. And that means we'll have to have some mileposts. What are the things, what are the places that we need to be along the way? Or what are the accomplishments that we need to have to get to that overall goal? And then track our progress. Are we getting there? If we get off path, then we need to reroute. What are the things, what are the ways that we can correct what we've done to get back on this course to our overall goal? That's really our course and our direction to keep going. All right. So metrics. We talk about measuring. Our goals. If we don't keep score, we're only practicing. And that was an anonymous quote. I couldn't find who that was attributed to, but I added a little more to that. I said, and we will never win. If we're not keeping score, nobody wins. So we have to track how we're doing, and those metrics are important. And I would just add this. Are we on a course to disaster? We may have had a very successful year. We may have had a successful decade for that matter. But the question is, were we successful because we did something about it, or were we just being lucky? Did we just get lucky? Just because our past has been squeaky clean doesn't necessarily mean that our future will be. We may have had near misses. We may have had close calls that could have been catastrophic had timing been just a distance been a little bit different. And so as we look at our metrics, we want to decide, what are we really doing? What is our performance now, and what is it in the future? Where have we come from and where are we going? Okay, so why do we monitor performance? I don't want to repeat past problems. And you guys have heard me talk about this for years. If you've listened to any of my webinars or presentations, it's frustrating to us to see the same type of injuries, the same type of car accidents come in over and over again with the same type of descriptions, because we're not learning from those things. So I think that's one of the major reasons why we want to monitor our performance, is so we don't repeat those past problems. We want to use our metrics to identify the areas that are hurting our performance. There may be something out there that is leading us to a catastrophe. And if we can look at that, unfortunately, over the years, we've looked at some really serious accidents, even involving fatalities, and after the fact, did a retrospective look at individuals involved with this and saw a track record of accidents and injuries that have happened leading up to those things. How do we prevent the bad thing from happening? We got to look at what has happened and what track we're on. Identify any blind spots. Sometimes it's easy to say, hey, we're doing pretty well. Well, as we go around and do risk assessments, we'll look at your facilities, and we regularly get a response, oh, wow, I hadn't noticed that. Mike and I come in with a different set of eyes because we're not there every day, and we'll point out a hazard, we'll point out a problem, and people will say that. Well, you know the truth, if I do a risk assessment at the trust, or maybe one of you walk into the trust, you may point something out to me that I didn't see. Or if I go in with a different set of eyes and say I'm doing a risk assessment, and I've done that. Wow, I walked past that challenge. So let's identify our blind spots by really looking for those. We need to know whether we're being successful. Sometimes we will go out and have a discussion with some of you, and we'll go through your past history for illness and injury, EMOD, for workers' compensation, all of those things. And sometimes people are surprised. Oh, I didn't know we were doing that well, or, oh, I really didn't know we were doing that poorly. How do we fix that? And so we need to know how we're doing on a regular basis. And at the end of the day, it's going to, if we do these things, it will help improve our morale, help us hit our targets. We can save money. All of those things are byproducts of really monitoring our performance and focusing our attention on those things. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff talking about why we do it. What do we do? In industry, they always talk about KPIs, or key performance indicators. What are the metrics, the numbers that will lead us in the direction that we're going? And so when we talk about key performance indicators, these need to be clear or understandable. They need to be understandable by everyone in the organization. I remember coming out of college and taking a first job, and the company talking about their metrics, and some of those I had no idea what those things were, and some of those were accounting things that I just hadn't had experience in. The overall point is, whatever our KPIs, they need to be understandable by the masses, not just by upper management, not just by the front line. Everybody needs to understand what they are. They need to be like other goals. They need to have a target and a time period under which that we're going to accomplish those things. Numbers are great because numbers are fixed, and we can understand the difference between those numbers. Where does the information come from? That's one of the challenges in setting key KPIs. How do I normalize? How do I make this number mean something? Where do I get it? And we'll talk about that in just a minute, sources of those. How often should we be looking at our key performance indicators? Well, I would say monthly is a really good frequency for looking at these numbers. If you go any more frequent than that, it becomes burdensome for people to really keep up on that. But once a month is a pretty good time frame. I go longer than a month. I go a quarter. They have less meaning. And if I'm only looking at these numbers once a year, we've missed our opportunities. We don't have a chance to fix any trends that we may see. But at a monthly basis, we're going to look at that and go, oh, I see that we have a problem, or I see that something is starting to happen here. Let's dive on that now, and not down the road. All right, counting is important, but what does it mean? We could say we only had 10 injuries this year. Well, what does that really mean in the grand scheme of things? If we have 10,000 employees, well, that's probably a pretty good number. But if we have 10 employees and every one of us got injured this year, well, that doesn't mean a whole lot. And so we need to compare to a standard. How are we doing as compared to other organizations like us? Okay. And so that's called normalizing. We want to take that and make a rate out of our performance, so it allows me to compare to other organizations. We want to tie it to something that is in common, and examples of things that we could use. Really, the standard in safety and workers' compensation is hours worked. How many injured per standard hours worked have we had? And we can directly compare that. What about lost time injuries? These are the OSHA standard rates that are really easy to compare against. There's tons of data on that. Bureau of Labor Statistics provides us with a lot of information about that. The number of vehicles that you have in your fleet. At the trust, we track an auto incident rate. How many claims per auto insured? And that gives us a pretty good idea of how one organization is performing as compared to others. Some things like expenditures may or may not be good, but other things that we track are things like our sewer survey. You'll be seeing that go out pretty soon. And we track things like miles of pipe, the total number of connections. And so we can take a very large sewer district that has tens of thousands of connections and miles and miles and miles of pipe and compare that to a really small city that has far fewer connections and miles of pipe. But we can put that in a rate that really lets us compare apples to oranges. Okay. Other things you might consider: population, services provided, the number of repetitions that we have, and the number of failures or successes that we have on each one of those. Mike, I see some chats. I can't read them, but I can see some numbers there. We all good? We have some questions.
Yep, we're good. We're good.
All right. I asked Mike that, so it gave me a chance to take a drink. And so we can catch up. Okay. We talked about this normalizing data. Bureau of Labor Statistics is a great organization. It's a federal agency as part of the Department of Labor, and you may get a survey from them almost every year. It comes out in a letter and says you're going to go to prison if you don't return this information, and we send them the information on the type of injuries that we have and various other questions that they asked, hours worked, and all of those things. National Transportation Safety Board, National Safety Council, other industry groups, and really the trust. We have data that we can help you with. We have the trust data. We also participate in national organizations that pool information from organizations like the trust, trusts from across the country, so we can compare how we're performing to others that are out there. And we share that information with you in various different formats. Just for example, we do this sewer survey. Once we receive all of the responses from the sewer survey, we normalize it. So we have the average number of claims, we have the average miles of pipe, we have, and all of those metrics, the different questions we ask you, and we send that out in a sewer report card so you can see how you're performing compared to others. And there's auto and workers' compensation and all of those things are metrics that we share with you to help you out. The EMOD is another good example for that. So choosing the right key performance indicator, and I say KPI, and it really should be KPIs, because there are probably 2 or 3 or maybe a dozen, depending on your organization, KPIs, key performance indicators, that will really gauge the direction of your organization. But when we choose these, we have the choice between trailing or lagging indicators. I've seen it called both of those, and I may swap back and forth, and leading indicators. And we'll talk about the difference between those now. A lagging indicator is something that happened. These are kind of the traditional metrics that we're used to, things that I already spoke about: the OSHA recordable incident rate, how many claims did we have, the lost time rate. Your EMOD is probably the laggiest of the lagging indicators, because it goes back 4 years and indicates how you have performed in workers' compensation compared to other similar organizations. If you're above 1, not so good. You're under 1, great. You're going to be paying less on your work comp premium. But there are things that have happened. The horse is out of the barn with a lagging indicator. There's not much that we can do except look back and go, hey, we did great, or wow, we didn't do so well during that time period. We take a look, and this is not to say that lagging indicators are bad. They're just, and we need to look at these and see how we're doing, but there are more effective metrics to work towards prevention and hopefully be able to direct where these lagging indicators are going. You take a look at this one. This is the overall trust. This is not a rate. These are total lost time days for the trust. And every year we're adding additional hours worked, we're adding additional employees that are insured in workers' compensation, and additional members of the trust. And over time, our total number of lost time days is going down. Now, I'd love to take credit for all of this, but in reality, it's you folks out there that are really having the impact on this, because you're helping people get back to work. You're helping them to have less serious injuries because of the safety efforts that you're putting in out there. So we love to look at this graph and see that, hey, we're getting better. We want to keep going down and down and down until we really realize that the benefits from that, and we keep people safe. All right, keep going. Told Mike I got to be succinct. Traditional indicators are OSHA recordables, lost time rates, EMOD, auto incident rate per vehicle, et cetera, et cetera. You see those things. Now, some of these, I got a couple of graphs in here that are a little older because the Bureau of Labor Statistics changed their graphs. They're all interactive now, and I can't get a good overall country graph. So they're just there to kind of give you an idea of how things are going. OSHA recordable rate, I just want to talk briefly about what this is, because this is the standard of the industry. The OSHA recordable injury rate and the days away rate are really the standard when it comes to injuries. So we take the total number of recordable cases, and if you want to know the definition of recordable case, I've got a great OSHA 300 webinar that you can go check out on our YouTube channel. We take those cases times 200,000. You say, what's 200,000? Well, that's 100 people averaging 2,000 hours work per year. That's an average full-time employee. And we divide that by the hours, the total hours worked. Okay, my line didn't come through very good there, so you can't see that we're dividing. So recordable cases times 200,000 divided by the total hours worked. Now, you may have well over 200,000 hours if you've got hundreds of employees, or you may have less than that. And that's just going to give you an overall rate. Okay. The next one is the days away rate. These are for injuries that are bad enough that people lose time, right? They can't come back to work after they're injured. And so it's the same calculation, only the cases are the lost time cases. And so this gives us, between these two rates, we can see frequency, how many claims are you having, or how many injuries are you having in your workforce, versus how severe are they? How many of those cases are requiring people to lose time from work? Well, that severity equals pain for people. It also equals increased cost because of lost time and increased medical cost as well. And so you can really see, how are we doing? We may not have very many total injuries that happen, but they're all bad. Well, that's a different problem to work on than we have a whole bunch, but we don't have a lot of severity with those. That's a different problem in and of itself, but they're good because we can point out, where is our problem coming from? All right. So comparing rates, when we take a look at the overall rates, and these numbers don't jive here because like I said, the national here's what the new graph looks like. I can only do one state at a time, so that's why we have this old chart here. And what you'll see on that, though, is that Utah has actually decreased on the total recordable rate for private industry. It went from 3.0 to 2.6 since 2017. So that's a real positive direction for overall private. Local government agencies, we're not doing as well. We're about double what private industry is. And so we've got some work to do there. If you're interested, that is the link where you can get into those interactive graphs, and they're really good. It just doesn't work great for the type of presentation that we're doing. Comparing rates, when it comes to days away rate, private agencies have a days away rate of 0.9 cases, and that's per 100,000, right? Or per 100 full-time employees, 200,000 hours worked. Local governments, we're well over double that. working on 3 times the rate, and this is nationwide. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. Where are we in comparison to other types of organizations out there? Now, is that reasonable because of the type of work we do? Well, that's probably out for debate. But I think just looking at the overall numbers, we probably got some work to do there. Okay. Other rates that we can look at, this is one that I watch. We look at our total payroll, and we look at our incident rates, and that consistently has gone down. But there are factors with that. How much has our payroll increased over time? And so we have to be careful about the metrics that we choose and what the real meaning is. If we have a massive increase in our payroll, well, that may dilute the overall direction of what that rate is. EMOD is probably the best indicator that exists for your workers' comp performance. That is based on an NCCI standard. So NCCI is a national ratings bureau, and they look at the type of losses that happen for your type of organization around the country, and then you're compared against that, and then your EMOD is a big long calculation. I won't belabor that one. If you're interested in your EMOD calculation, I'll go through it, but it takes a lot of time to go through and explain what it means. But basically, it's a comparison of how you're doing against other organizations doing similar types of work. And so if your EMOD is above 1, then you're not doing very well. That means you're worse than the industry average. If it's less than 1, you're doing better. Okay. And just a couple of things about that. This is, like I said, this is the laggiest of the lagging indicators. It goes back 4 years, the first 3 of the last 4 years. Severity counts more. So if I have lost time claims, those are going to count more against you. But if I can get somebody back to work with just medical cost, I actually get a 70% reduction in what counts against you in your EMOD. Okay. And like I said, if you're interested in that, please give me a call or send me an email, and we'd love to talk about your EMOD. All right. Other trailing indicators: auto accidents, liability, public complaints, permit misses or violations. Maybe you're in an organization that has wastewater or some environmental permit that you're dealing with. If we get a violation on that, well, that's an indicator that we've missed our target. Regulatory agency inspections. Did we get citations when OSHA showed up, or when Department of Environmental Quality showed up and did a audit of our facilities? Auto incident rates. This is a pretty simple rate. How many accidents did you have divided by the number of cars that you have insured or you're operating. Nationally, that's about 4%. It goes up and down. The trust is pretty darn close. We're right there. Unfortunately, we've seen that increase over the years. That's gone up from about 3.5% over the last few years. We had a pretty significant increase around COVID. About 2020, we had a pretty major increase in our car crashes. Now, we can debate why that is and all of that, but the reality is those numbers are going the wrong way. We can use tools to help us find problems. We can see trends. We can see where things are coming from. Mike and myself have a job to help you with this. And so if you want to know where your challenges are, we can send you reports. We can chat with you about the direction that your organization is going and help to point out, hey, here are the type of, you're having a lot of backing crashes, and backing crashes are 100% preventable. So let's focus our attention on that. And then we can work through what program or boilerplates that you may need to help you with that. Okay. All right, now we're talking, or we want to just wrap up trailing indicators, and we'll talk leading indicators. Trailing indicators are great. It's important data. We've got to know that stuff. But in reality, it's a measure of failure, and it comes way too late for us to be able to react to it. I took this picture at a facility. Thought it was great as employees would drive into this facility. They had their sign out there that said we had it was basically like a traffic sign. And if it was a green light, we haven't had any recordable cases in this amount of time. And they had a number on there, how many days it had been since they had recordable case. However, as I looked at this sign, if you look closely on the left-hand side, hope you can see that, there's an electrical hazard. They've got wires hanging out of their safety sign. And I thought, wow, what kind of message are we really sending here when our safety sign is unsafe? Anyway, just a thought as we were hitting that. Leading indicators help us get where we're going, and not just look back on what's happened. If I'm driving down the freeway, looking in my rearview mirror, I'm going to get in a crash. So let's look ahead. Let's look at where we're going by using leading indicators to get there. So what is it that we could use to be a leading indicator? These are things that just indicate future success or future failure. Things could be, you could sit out in the parking lot and watch all of your staff drive out and take account on how many of those drivers had their seatbelts on. Okay, what does that tell me? Well, it gives me an overall idea of what my safety culture is. If everybody's wearing their seatbelt, that gives us a pretty good idea that safety is a value. If nobody's wearing the seatbelt, or few people are wearing seatbelts, that may give me an idea as well. PPE observations, training review, metrics like, did every department have a safety training this month? How often have we updated our safety policies or our risk policies? How many do we have a designated safety officer working? How often have our safety committees met? Have they met within the last quarter? How many safety suggestions have been put in? Things like sewer manhole inspections. Did we inspect our sewer manholes? This is a leading indicator, because if you're looking in your sewer system, you're going to identify problems before they become problems, and you're going to take the appropriate actions. So those are some of the leading indicators that we focus on at the Trust. And just a whole list of different things that we can do. Safety survey of employees' perception on their jobs. These things will help us know what direction we're going. This was attributed to Albert Einstein. I'm not sure if it was or not. The quote goes, "Not everything that counts can be counted. Not everything that can be counted counts." So choose well the type of things that we pick. That's what I said at the outset. I'm not going to tell you, here are the metrics that you should use. I just want you to look seriously at your operations and say, what really indicates the direction we're going as an organization out of all the different things we've talked about today, and maybe a dozen others that you can come up with. But just a couple of thoughts on this. Metrics should apply to all parts of the organization. They should show us where we are headed. They need to be understandable by everybody in the organization, so they know what we're really striving for. And they should give us tools for our safety committee to take action. So a metric that says, hey, we've got a problem with safety belt usage. Okay, well, that can give us something that we can take action on. Maybe it's an awareness thing. We need to do training. We need to do something out there. We have backing crashes. Now, that's a trailing indicator, but it can also give us a direction of where to look for. Give your safety committees a tool. and guide our governing body decisions. So if they know where we have challenges or where we're successful, they can guide their decisions and really guide where we're spending our money. A couple other thoughts on this, some leading indicators. Incident reporting. Are we reporting all of our incidents the same day? Does it get to the supervisor and does it get to upper management the same day? Which departments are doing safety training? Did every department do a safety training during the month? Have they been doing inspections of the department? Has management done something regarding safety as far as a walk around or going out and having interviews with employees about their safety? Did the safety committee meet this month? And did they have actions that came from the discussions that they had? If we have a work order around safety, was it completed? What percentage of those were completed? Observations, like we talked about, safety belts, personal protective equipment. How many drivers have violations on their record? Each month we send out your motor vehicle record report, and up the top left-hand corner, it says how many drivers you have with a violation on their record, a ticket. And it also has the percentage, the overall percentage of trust member agencies. You may be really good, you may be right the same, or you may be a lot worse, but that gives you an indication of how your drivers are doing. Review of code responses for law enforcement and public safety agencies there. Completed safety work orders like we talked about, manhole inspections, and our employees participating in the program. One of the ways in that original quote that we talked about, if we report on these things, then we're going to exponentially improve those metrics. And so we recommend that you have a monthly report around all of these metrics. Now, this is a sample report we'll send out to everybody that signed up for the webinar today. Take it and make it yours. I'll send it in a PDF and an Excel spreadsheet as well, so you can just change those boxes around. But what are the metrics that we're looking at? And if this goes to upper management once a month, well, I guarantee you we are going to improve on those metrics, because that's what management does, is they take a look at things and they say, here's a problem, or here's a success, and they're going to accentuate whatever it is. So this is one that I've used, but take it and make it yours. Make it something that works, but it has both trailing and leading indicators on there as well. Measure once. And then we make a mess of it. Measure twice, and we'll get that cut right. George Bernard Shaw, probably not the best example of a human, but he had a pretty good quote here. The only man who behaves sensibly is my tailor. He takes my measurements anew every time he sees me, while all the rest go on with their old measurements and expect me to fit them. So think about our measurements, and let's check those on a regular basis every time, once a month or whatever the frequency that we come up with, so we know where we're going at any time. And really, I got a couple more slides, but I want to wrap on that one because I know I've gone a little bit long here. Folks, if you've got questions or comments on this, I'd love to hear those and love to be able to answer those. Mike, do we have any? And go ahead and type those in the chat box so we can get your questions.
No questions. You've done a really good job with this. This is a fantastic topic to talk about.
Well, it's a hard topic, but this is something that I would encourage you that you sit down with your safety committee and make sure upper management is involved with that meeting to determine what is it that we want to track. Don't track things that are meaningless. Don't track things that don't take you where you want to go. because we're just wasting time gathering that kind of data if it really doesn't get us where we need to be. So be really thoughtful about those things and ask that question as a safety committee. And you know what, Mike and I'd love to sit down with this discussion. If you want to have us in your safety committee and sit down and talk metrics, hey, that's what we're all about. Is helping you down that direction. So, all right. Well, if there are no questions, I guess we'll wrap. I will send out the form that we just referenced, and the safety accountability form, and a copy of the slides to everybody who signed up. And we will post up this webinar to our YouTube channel, hopefully later this afternoon. We'll see how the day goes, if everything gets edited and posted up that quickly. Hopefully we'll have that. So it's just a reminder to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll see that. We'll also send a link when we send out the follow-up to that. So I see a couple of chat things coming up. Is there any?
Nope, just some kudos for you.
Okay.
Jeremy and Tom.
Awesome. Thank you so much, folks. I appreciate everybody out there and all of your hard work. And we're here to help and support you. Go out and have a safe day.